Well, here we are. Welcome back to another episode of the Newt News Podcast. This is our second live stream version. And so we're thankful for all of you that are joining in right now into the live stream. As you're joining in and hopping in, just go ahead and throw some comments in there as we're going through. It's the winter meetings this week. And so really excited about what this means for Cardinal baseball overall. So we'll be first previewing kind of some of our thoughts about that, where the Cardinals look to be heading into the winter meetings, and then probably a good segue out of that conversation will be we'll be talking about different trade assets that the Cardinals have and who is the most likely to be moved, who should they not be looking to move, all of those different things. So Sandy's back with us this week. We did an emergency live stream pod last week, and we're really excited about the engagement with that one. So thank you everyone who was able to make that. So yeah, let's just jump straight into it. So the winter meetings begin today. The Cardinals obviously are going to be looking to be active again. They've been by far the most active team in baseball so far this offseason, but they're not the only team that's looking to make major moves at the winter meetings. And so kind of, Sandy, let's start with you, man. Where do you feel like the Cardinals are situated at as they head into this week?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like you said, it's going to be a really active winter meetings. You have a ton of teams that are looking for starting pitching. But thankfully, we saw the Cardinals jump ahead of the market, which I think is a really big deal. We've talked about that, how they've gotten certainty. I think that's something that outside of this podcast hasn't been covered enough. The Cardinals sit at a place right now where they've addressed their needs and they can start pursuing some wants.
Yeah.
I think they have another need, another starting pitcher. Maybe they need one bullpen arm. But yeah, the Cardinals are at a place where they kind of have some leverage. They don't have to do anything. They're not going to be pressured into anything. It's a good spot to be.
Yeah, so totally agree with that.
In the chat here, saying what starting pitchers available that we prefer by trade. Personally, I know all the Dylan Cease rumors are going rampant right now, and I don't really think that's somebody I would be too high on. I think Dylan Cease is a guy who has a lot of ace potential. He had one really good year in 2022, but I saw a comparison to 2019 Jack Flaherty, and that just kind of scares me. I don't think he's going to be that, but I also don't want to end up having to give up like Donovan or Gorman. The Clase trade with Shane Bieber has been picking up a lot of traction on some rumor sites recently, and I think that one is something that I'd be particularly interested in because Clase also fixes the bullpen with a high leverage arm, and he'd probably be the closer. Helsley be the setup guy. And we got Tyler Glass now popping up in the chat here. I think that's another name that we've talked about extensively. Josh, I know you're a big Tyler Glasnow fan, so let you talk about him.
Oh yeah, Tyler Glasnow is still my favorite target out of the bunch. But I mean, if you told me they walk away from the winter meetings with Dylan Cease, Tyler Glasnow, I still think Yamamoto's in play based on Jeff Jones' reporting. Now, I wouldn't put the Cardinals as a likely team destination for that, but if they want to make a strong offer, it sounds like Yamamoto wants to consider them. And from Jones' reporting, it sounds like the Cardinals also still want to go dive into the financial waters that it would take to get Yamamoto. Which, if you're willing to go to that price, then you're probably close. I mean, you could be a finalist here, so it's a realistic thing. So I would say if they walk away with Yamamoto, Cease, or Glasnow, I would love it. Clase, Bieber, that kind of package I'm interested in. I'm more interested in Clase than I am actually Shane Bieber. I don't see the Mariners moving any of their young starters. So, and even if they do, I continue to think it's a weird fit. Like in theory, it makes sense you make a trade, but like what they want for Gilbert, the Cardinals are not going to give up, and what they want for Bryce Miller and Wu doesn't really help the Cardinals all that much. And it's still like it's going to be an overpay, in my opinion. So I would still lean Glasnow. Glasnow I just put out a story today on different trades that they could pull off the deadline or at the winter meetings. And man, Glasnow's stuff is just elite. Really? He was top 7 in pretty much any advanced category when it comes to the kind of stuff he has. And of course, yes, the injuries are a concern, but again, the price point, like Andrew talked about, if you're potentially giving up a Nolan Gorman or Brendan Donovan for Dylan Cease, yes, he's cost controlled, which Zach just put on here, it's a great point. It means a lot, and it's part of the reason why he's an attractive target. But then you're giving up a lot of assets in return when instead of Tyler Glasnow, you're probably giving him to like Alec Burleson and Gordon Graceffo or something like that. Like the price to acquire here, it just makes way more sense to me. But I'm starting to believe that Dylan Cease can be had without Brendan Donovan without Nolan Gorman. So since we're getting a bunch of Cease comments, I'd like to hear kind of what you guys are thinking about. Like, what is his trade value right now? First, do you think it's possible to pull it off without Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan? And if so, what kind of package does that have to look like then?
I think if the White Sox are going into a full rebuild, it might take some like prospect package of like Mason Wynn or Victor Scott. Tim Kentz is another name that has been thrown out there, and those rumors as well. I really don't want to give up Nolan Gorman or Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan, we had discussions about this this past week, but Brendan Donovan, I think, is the guy I would prefer to give up. Obviously, you don't want to give up either of them, but a lot of people on Twitter have been arguing about like who they prefer to give up. It's pretty funny, but I don't want to give up either of them. But if I had to pick, it would probably be Donovan, because I think that 30 home run power from Nolan Gorman is hard to find. You look at Jose Altuve, you look at Ozzie Albies, and that's pretty much it. There's no one else giving you that from second base. Yeah. A lot of other teams are in on Dylan Cease. I think the Dodgers and the Braves are two teams that have been linked to him. The Dodgers have a lot of prospect capital that they could go and give up, a lot of like really young arms as well that are probably profile similar to Tim Kentz. I don't know if they're going to be inclined to give those guys up because their pitching is kind of thin already, but the Dodgers, I think, are going to be a pretty big threat, because especially if they sign Ohtani, which I expect them to do in the coming days, they're going to need pitching rotation to back that up, because Ohtani won't be ready to pitch next year.
Yeah, something I was when I was doing a little bit more of a deep dive about Nolan Gorman versus Brendan Donovan that I was really actually surprised by is Nolan Gorman last year put up an 840 OPS and 86 plate appearances against left-handed pitching, which that was supposed to be his big weakness. Obviously strikeouts, but like people thought he was kind of platoon heavy. Brendan Donovan had a sub 600 OPS against left-handed pitching. So like he's actually a little bit more platoony than we think. Now, I think he was a little bit better in 2022 against left-handed pitching. So I think he's better than that, a larger sample size. But it just kind of sold me a little bit more on Nolan Gorman too, as a guy that you can trust in the middle of your order against right or left-handed pitching every single day. And again, you have a large new bar, you have other guys that can kind of get on base. So that left-handed power that Gorman brings is just something they don't have. And so outside of him. And so if I had to give up one or the other, I think it's probably Brendan Donovan, even though he's awesome and I would love to keep him. But if I'm John Mozeliak and I'm calling the White Sox, I'm doing everything I can to give up other pieces, even if it means multiple pieces that are going to hurt, so I can hold on to Nolan Gorman and Brendan Donovan. So I'm looking at Thomas JC, even though, again, I like him a lot, but like you have Brendan Donovan, you have Mason when you have Nolan Gorman. I think that's a position of strength you can trade from. I'm looking at using Dylan Cease because it makes sense for the White Sox to buy low on a guy like him. He could be the third or fourth piece of a package, and that's an incredible guy to bank on as a third or fourth piece. It's a pretty safe piece. I think Tim Kentz, and then I think you throw in another prospect there, and I think that's a good framework for a deal. Now, it depends on how aggressive the Dodgers decide to get with their young pitching, because I think the thing that the Cardinals have the advantage of is that they could put Brendan Donovan or Nolan Gorman in the package, and I think that wins them the deal. But my preference would be to pull it off without them. Now, if they're bidding against the Dodgers, can they do that? Or they're bidding against the Baltimore Orioles, can they outbid them without giving them up? I don't know. Sandy, what are you thinking about the Dylan Cease packages?
Yeah, I mean, I think the White Sox are going to come to the table and they're going to say, we want one of your premium MLB pieces. So that would obviously include Donovan, Gorman, Nootbaar. I don't see the Cardinals parting with any of those guys, which is why I think the deal is actually pretty unlikely. If not, I think the White Sox will demand 3 premium prospects. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not like so willing to give up all that control. That's a lot, in my opinion. And I don't know. I really don't want to see them trade Tink Hentz, Thomas Sajazi, and Victor Scott. Like that's a really big package. So I'd be uncomfortable with it. That's why for me, I'm a little bit more interested in Shane Bieber, who I know Cardinals fans lately have kind of been dumping on, saying he's past his prime, and he might be. But I think Shane Bieber is still a good pitcher. I think Shane Bieber is still a very solid 3, maybe a low end 2. It makes the Cardinals better. And I don't think he costs much to acquire at all. I'd be shocked if it costs that much more than O'Neal to go get Shane Bieber. So I'd be interested in that. As for the competition for Cease, which we were just talking about, I'd be shocked to see the Orioles enter the sweepstakes. They've been linked, but the Orioles have shown so much hesitance to part with any of their prospects over the last, 5 years. They've been prospect hoarding. I don't see how the Braves have the pieces to get it done.
No.
I mean, unless the White Sox are enamored with Smith Shawver, but I mean, come on, like there's a reason he's not on anyone's top prospect list. So yeah, it's probably the Cardinals and the Dodgers right now, at least from the White Sox perspective.
Yeah.
So
and again, go ahead.
I mean, are you going to keep going with Cease? I was just going to move.
Yeah, let me just finish the Cease a little bit.
Okay.
Again, like it's really hard to know what the White Sox are along with that, but like in a way, I kind of feel like their market's a little bit more narrow than you would think for a starter like that.
Yeah.
You would think there'd be like 8 or 9 teams on them, but it really seems like right now, and again, mystery teams could come in. There's probably teams that are looking at the free agent market, and if it doesn't work out, they'll turn their attention to the White Sox. But right now it's like the Reds and the Orioles, which again, I don't know if either of them pull the trigger because they're prospect hoarding usually. It's the Braves, who I just don't think have enough to pull it off. It's the Dodgers, and then it's the Cardinals. And then I also kind of look at like, Cyrus made a really good point about this recently, talking about the Cardinals and Cease as a potential matchup. But the Cease just has been the White Sox, the way they've been kind of talking about how they want to revamp the team. It seems like they want a lot of players. Like, it doesn't mean they're going to take Tyler O'Neill and Andre Palante and all of that to get it done. But like, it seems like they would rather have a bunch of B tier guys than like go all in on 2 A tier guys and then get nothing else in return. Because I also think like there are questions about Cease's ability to be a frontline starter because he's only put up the one top year. He's put up 32, and 30 starts in his 3 full seasons. So like, he gives innings and he has elite stuff, but like, is he an elite pitcher? We think so, but I just don't think it's going to take the moon to get him like I initially thought it was going to, which is why I think like a JC, a Hentz, Carlson, and insert one more prospect here could probably get it done. But again, who really knows what the White Sox are going to do with that? They still don't have to trade him, but it just makes sense to trade him now because his value's at its peak for them.
Yeah, I think the White Sox would be fools to not move Cease this offseason. They're just in a really weird spot as a franchise. You have this young core with Moncada, Jimenez, Robert that was supposed to come up, and then they signed those veterans like Grandal to come in and augment it, and none of it worked. Like literally nothing worked for the White Sox. Kopech's been hurt. None of the young pitching except Cease really developed, and they're just kind of stuck as an organization, which is part of the reason I'm a little hesitant, because I think there's a chance the White Sox could ask for the moon in prospect capital. And for me, it's like, do I want to give up 30 years of control? Do I want to give up 5 lower level prospects who are all really interesting to me? Like, that's a lot for 2 years of Dylan Cease. I understand he's a premium pitcher. But my other question is like, how much better is Dylan Cease than Shane Bieber? We know that at Shane Bieber's peak, Bieber was better than almost anybody. But right now, is Shane Bieber like, he doesn't get as many strikeouts as Cease does. But let's not forget, last year, Shane Bieber was still a 2-WAR pitcher in 140 innings, still provided you with, a sub-4 ERA. And then his 2022 season, people are forgetting all too quickly. He threw 200 innings and finished 7th in Cy Young voting. Like, he was an elite pitcher 2 years ago. Yeah, he's been hurt, but is that just a bad year? Can he bounce back? And he's shown us that he can get hitters out even without strikeouts. He's a professional pitcher. Yeah, his StatCast page doesn't look quite as good as Cease's. But I'm really hesitant on Cease right now. I'm cooling off on him, I think.
Interesting. The last part I'll put to the Cease thing is it's like, I was kind of going down the rabbit hole. This is more so when I was looking at, like, even though I don't think it's going to happen, but the idea of a Juan Soto trade. I was like, well, like, how often do these like mega prospect packages come back to bite you? And for the most part, you look at like these deals that people passed on, and it's like, oh, they didn't want to give up these 2 prospects, and one of them turned out to be a number 5 starter, and the other one flamed out. Like, it just seems more often than not, sure, if they give up 5 of those prospects, I really like a lot of those Cardinals prospects. So I think JC will turn out. I think Pence could turn out, but like the likelihood of all those guys hitting is pretty low to me. Yeah. And then if 2 or 3 of the 5 hit and you get Cease and he helps you make a run, like,
it's true. Yeah,
it's hard. It's just, this is why it's hard to make trades, because you risk giving up 2 Cy Young candidates for a guy who could flame out, or you risk not getting a Cy Young candidate for guys who will flame out. Like, absolutely. Nobody really knows this. So, I think it's interesting. And then we can close the Cease point, but I'm sure we'll talk more about it as we talk about different trade candidates. But if the Dodgers get Ohtani, I still think they're still aggressive on Cease. I don't know about you guys at that, but he's cost controlled. they need more certainty in their rotation, and Otani's not going to pitch this year. So I actually think it has zero impact on their chances of Cease. If anything, it might make it more likely because they've spent all this money, so they need to kind of add a guy without adding a ton more salary, even though they could go get Yamamoto and Otani. But I think it's equally likely they get Cease if they don't get Otani, or if they do get Otani.
I'm manifesting Otani to the Dodgers right now because if he goes to the Cubs, I'll just be so scared. Like I don't know what I would do, but yeah, it would be so
What do you
bad.
think are the odds that Otani goes to the Cubs?
I don't even want to think about that number because it makes me scared and it makes me sad.
Give me 30%, probably 30%.
If it's 30, there's no way it's 30%. The Cubs fans are driving me crazy right now. They think they're going to get Otani. They think they're going to get Juan Soto. They think they're going to trade for Bo Bichette. I don't even know what's going on. Bo Bichette's not on the trade block, guys. Come on.
Also, I know we keep saying we close the Cease point, but I want to bring it on. Even in a down year last year, he was 9th in K percentage, above Garrett Cole, Zach Wheeler, Zach Gallen, Giolito, Kelly, Burns, Nola. Like he's got the stuff, and I just think it's a weird year in Chicago, and the fact that he eats innings. Like Shane Bieber could be had for less, but if I'm ranking my rankings here, like probably Glasnow here because of the cost point, but then also the ceiling. Then Cease because of the ceiling, but you also get the certainty if he's a guy that's going to give you 30, 32 starts. Bieber, at this point, I don't know if his stuff is diminishing or not. It feels like it is. I don't know if he can continue to pitch with that stuff, and he's injury prone. It's like it just feels like the ceiling's limited and there's a low floor with him. But again, like who really knows? Would I be shocked if he's an all-star again next year? No, it's Shane Bieber. So, but let's talk more about the Bieber Clase. You threw it up there a second ago. Andrew, we're wanting to talk about that a little bit.
There you go. So the ideal trade package for Bieber and Clase, I've seen a lot of names that I'm not comfortable giving up thrown around. Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, some of the same kinds of things going on there. I think the reason Clase adds such a big cost to this trade package is because I think he signed a contract extension with Cleveland, and it's very team friendly. I think he's making like $10 million in the final 2 seasons of his deal with club options.
Yeah. He's got 5 years of control still.
Yeah, so that's a really big deal for one of the best relief arms in the entire game. Nasty cutter that hits like 102, just not fair at all. But relievers are also very volatile, and who knows? Emmanuel Clase could lose all control and turn into like another version of Jordan Hicks from like earlier in the season when he just couldn't locate anything. So I feel less comfortable just going after Shane Bieber straight up. I feel like that would be something to explore. Or I think another idea that we threw around the other day was trading for Glasnow and then trading for Clase with a smaller package. I feel like that would make more sense. Because the Bieber Clase thing would probably command like Nolan Gorman or Brendan Donovan or even Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker territory, which we're not even going to touch because that's not happening.
Yeah, I want to push back on what you said about Clase though. Like he did have his worst season, and he was still one of the best closers in all of baseball. You look at what he gave you last year. He finished 65 games. That's almost half of Cleveland's games. Like Clase was in there at the end. Still racked up a bunch of saves, 44 saves. It's the second year in a row he's led all of baseball. And like the fact that relievers are volatile, in my opinion, is a point in Clase and other relievers like him. It's a point in their favor. You have a guy that is basically immune to the volatility that a lot of relievers face. I think last year is about the worst you're going to get from Clase, at least in his prime here. And he's a guy that he's going to go out there. He's going to give you 75, 80 appearances. He's going to throw 80 innings in a season, and they're going to be like premium innings. I mean, back in 2022, he had one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a reliever. A 136 ERA, 42 saves, 77 games. I mean, that's just elite stuff. And so I see why he's super expensive. That's a guy that on the open market, he's getting paid 20, maybe even 25 million AAV.
Exactly.
If you're looking at, the Edwin Diaz deal aging now, and for a guy that I think might be better than Edwin Diaz. So yeah.
And you think like team building perspective too, like whichever way you put it, Helsley or Clase, now your pitching staff really just has to get you through the 7th inning.
Oh yeah.
And then you basically have the game on lock, which again, like think about how they're shortening the game. They needed those innings on the front end, so they're not straining their bullpen so much. But now think about the opposite end when you have like Lance Lynn goes 6 innings, gives up 3 or 4 runs, and then you have Gio in the 7th, or JoJo, or Thompson, whoever you want to put in, then Helsley, then Clase. Like, that is just like in the regular season, that's a way to rack up wins. But then in the postseason, like, oh my goodness, especially when you have Sonny Gray, or if they got another front end starter starting in game, you have 5 or 6 innings of 1-2 run ball. You have to get through 1 inning with your bullpen, or maybe 2, and then you go to Clase Helsley. Like, that is really enticing, and the long term, because he's 2 million, 4 million, 6 million, and then 10 million, 10 million the last 2 years, and their club options. So like, if somehow he does flame out, it's like, oh, okay, we'll drop him then. So I'm not comfortable giving up Brendan Donovan or Nolan Gorman in a deal like that, but I am comfortable giving up like a Tink Hence, because I think like best outcome for Tink Hence is a frontline starter, but that's like probably a really low probability. Middle of the rotation starter is where it gets a little bit higher, but he's probably a 5 and dive guy. And then one of his better outcomes is he's an elite reliever. That's what Clase is. So it's like the certainty of Clase versus like the hope of Tink Hence. I think that separates it a little bit for me. But again, it's what's the overall package. I don't think if they go for, I think the majority of that trade value, if you did Bieber and Clase, comes from Clase, not from the fact that they're both in it. Like, I really think, to Sandy's point, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I really think it's basically Tyler O'Neill value for Shane Bieber at this point. Yeah. So like, if you get him, he's almost like a throw-in in the deal, even though he's like the Cy Young winner. Like, at this point, he's just not, he just doesn't have the value anymore. And his contract at 12.5 million or 15 million this year, something like that. Yeah, so he's not cheap either. So anyways, I think the Guardians are a very interesting team, but I don't know if it'll happen now, because they have so much control that I feel like they're going to ask for the moon if they don't get it. They'll wait. Yeah, because we saw like for a rental Chapman at the deadline in 2016. Again, the Cubs were trying to win a World Series, so take it with a grain of salt. But they gave up Gleyber Torres, so like I have a hard time believing Clase is going to go for little, but who knows?
Before we get into ranking our trade assets, I want to address this one question. What are the chances the Cardinals come out of the winter meetings without any deals? So, like, do you think something has to happen for us at the winter meetings? And if something didn't happen at the winter meetings, how upset would you be?
I feel like has to happen is a strong way to say it, because it's also hard to know if the market's going to move like it should. Like, Yamamoto signing after the winter meetings, Ohtani might not be signed by the winter meetings, so that could slow the market. So like there could be deals that are just like glass now sees, all these things could wait to happen. I also think, like, what do they mean by make a move? Like, will they get a reliever at some point this week? I bet they make at least a small move. But like last year, they spent the whole winter meetings figuring out the catching market, and then they made the move for the catcher, I think like the evening of the winter meetings ending or the day after. So like, I don't think it's like essential. I think it's likely they do make a move. I just think there's a lot of things that make sense for it to happen, but it also depends on how the market moves. And I also don't think they're desperate, which is part of the reason why they're in a position of strength, is they don't have to pull off a deal. They can wait it out.
Yeah, I would say there's probably a 50% chance the Cardinals make like a move that you would be excited about. So, I mean, there's a good chance they come away with a starter. Maybe they get like a real bullpen arm, but there's probably an 80% chance, in my opinion, that there's a move made. Like, you could see the Cardinals sign a John Brebbia, and it's like, great, that's probably a $3 million pitcher. We're all going to be like happy about it, but it's nothing like earth shattering. So yeah, I would say there's a good chance there's a move, maybe 50-50, maybe like 40-60, that it's like a really exciting move.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I feel like they should make a move at this winter meetings. A lot of the teams that haven't made moves yet are probably going to be really aggressive, and I think the Reds and the Cubs are people I'm kind of scared of. And we're ahead of them now because we got aggressive and we made moves early. But if we like kind of stand pat the winter meetings and we don't really make any big moves, those guys can catch us real quick, especially if Chicago. I don't even want to say it. But yeah.
Yeah. I think real quick, Brady put in Phil Maton as a potential signing this week. It makes a lot of sense. Derek Gould is already, I just clicked this. But yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense that they'd want to control the pitcher. Gordon Graceffo, I think, makes a lot of sense. Matthew Liberatore, well, maybe not to the Rays, but anyways. But sorry, back to the Maton. I got distracted. Phil Maton's been someone that's been directly linked to them. He's from the area, makes sense, or he lives in Illinois, so pretty close by. Anyways, so I'm sure we'll continue to chat some of this potential chatter as we go through, but we wanted to segue into with all this trade talk because again, Yamamoto, I do think we didn't really talk about it, and we could maybe wrap up with it. There is the potential of it still. If we want to look at Jeff Jones reporting here, especially, it seems like there's people in the Cardinals, not seems like there are people in the Cardinals in front office who are screaming, in his words, for Yamamoto. Even after the Gray signing, they still are willing to commit to the financial waters. So outside of that, though, it seems like a trade is the way to go. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to tier rank the potential trade candidates on the Cardinals and put them in different categories. Are they an untouchable for us? Are they a guy that we're not going to trade? Are they a guy that we would package or put in a package for a star, but that's about it? We'll listen on them. Are they on the trade block? Are we listening to offers trying to move them, but not necessarily have to move them? And then last category is like more likely than not, they will be moved. So as we're going through, put your comments in, especially as you're going through names, and let us know, put the name and what you would say if they're untouchable, should be moved, anywhere in between. But we want to kind of go through this and give our opinion, especially when you have these debates about Brendan Donovan versus Nolan Gorman or all this kind of stuff. Like, who is actually on the table if we are the Cardinals front office? We're Randy Flores, Michael Gersh, and John Mozeliak for the moment. We're the meetings of the minds right now, and we're trying to figure out who to move. So let's start off with the most controversial Cardinal in so many ways. He was my absolute favorite for so long. When he was a prospect, I was all Bro Neal. I was like, this guy's going to be a beast. 2021 felt like a reckoning party. Like the way that Sonny Gray, I just called Sandy Sonny Gray again. The way that Sandy loves Sonny Gray. Wow. I've done this like 3 times.
I'm way that excited Sandy, about him. I'm just
if you guys, if you guys want to call me Tyler O'Neill, I mean, I'll take it. Like, I'll look like Tyler O'Neill.
I wish I looked like Tyler O'Neill.
But do we see O'Neill being on the card? We're not even that, sir. That was a leading question. Where does Tyler O'Neill rank in the tiers? I think this is a quick conversation, but what do you guys think?
I think he's untouchable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm not trading. I'm not kidding. Yeah, I think when Ollie Marmol said that he wanted to like weed players out or whatnot, who like didn't have the championship mindset. I don't remember quite what he said, but it sounded like he was talking about Tyler O'Neill, pretty much like the guy who was not on the IL but like missing games due to injuries. I think that's Tyler O'Neill. So I think he's going to be moved.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I just can't see a scenario in which the Cardinals are interested in paying O'Neill the amount that he needs to be paid this season. They probably want to free up that money, especially with what they've just taken on. Like, we have seen the payroll increase substantially now. Mm-hmm. It's tough. Like, I'm really sad to see O'Neill go. And I know that he has all the talent in the world and could go bang somewhere else. And I really hope he does, because I'm still a Tyler O'Neill fan at heart. But it's tough. Yeah, he could bench me. He could bench like 3 of me probably. Oh my goodness.
So I agree. O'Neill has to go and the will be moved. But I'm starting to convince myself that this could be a really bad idea, in that the Cardinals in about June of next year are going to be looking at Tyler O'Neill like the Dodgers looked at Cody Bellinger this year. He carries, like, Fangraphs is a really good stat where they approximate WAR into like a salary, which again, like, no one gets paid based off that, but it kind of tells you what they think you're worth. And he was worth like $9 million as a player last year, even playing only 70 games and being just basically below league average at the plate, because he's a really good defender. He's a good base runner, even when he's getting questioned about his hustle or whatever. Like, he's still good. And then when he puts it together, even if he's not the 50% above league average MVP type guy, if he's 20 to 30% above league average, that is one of the most valuable players in baseball. And so, like, there's a part of me that's like, again, $5.5 million. I think the part that maybe moves the needle for me is I just don't see any world where they re-sign him. So I think it just makes sense to move off him anyways. But like, based on how their lineup's going right now, you could have Tyler O'Neill as your 8th hitter. And like, the risk there is really low. And the potential reward is you have, again, I'm not even going to say a potential MVP type guy anymore, but you could have a 20 to 30% above league average hitter with lots of power and great defense, something the Cardinals struggled with last year as your left fielder. But I just don't think it's going to happen. So I just need to make sure people knew I still believe in Tyler O'Neill before he goes off somewhere else.
I mean, I can already see the comments that we saw with Adolis Garcia.
Oh my gosh! Don't even start.
I can't. Like, it's just not gonna. Anyway.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to probably a harder one to narrow down. I'm really interested in the comments. Like, what do you guys think of Thomas Saggese? So again, Saggese, infielder, came over in the Rangers trade. He won Texas League MVP. I believe he had just below a 1,000 OPS, if not higher, on the season in AA this year, or across AA and AAA. He's just blossoming right now. He's a guy that's probably going to be a top 100 prospect this year. Again, he's kind of blocked by Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman right now, but with the addition of the DH and Donovan's flexibility, I think in 2025, Saggese probably has more playing time. He could have some playing time in 2024. I'll just go ahead since I'm on this. I think I put him in only for a star. I don't think he's quite untouchable because of Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman, and he's a right-handed bat. I think you just give the edge to the left-handed bats a little bit there too. So I'm not moving Thomas Saggese unless I'm getting a frontline starter in return. Like that's the only, and again, there's like, he can't be the only piece. The other team's going to take more, but that's the only scenario where I move Thomas Saggese.
Would you move him for Glass now?
No, I don't know. No, it would be like Dylan Cease or Logan Gilbert or yeah, that's it. Like those kind of pitchers, they have to have control.
We forget. I think we forget how good the Cardinals are at making these types of players succeed. Think about Brendan Donovan, who is a prospect, and none of us knew his name. He was a guy that made the opening day roster, and we were like, who is this dude? Yeah. And he's that utility type infielder, makes a lot of contact, hits the ball the other way all the time. And that's who Saggese is with a little bit of added power. I think he's going to be a really good everyday player at some point, and I'm not moving him. And, you know, it would really stink to see him blocked here for a long time, but like in the worst possible way, I'd kind of rather have Saggese play a reserve role here than go star somewhere else for pennies on the dollar of that value. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not moving him. Also, like Brendan Donovan and Nolan Gorman get hurt, and we don't know what Mason's win. I mean, we think he's gonna be really good, but who knows? He could flame out. Donovan could move to the outfield at times. The DH spot is open like some days of the week. Paul Goldschmidt's on a 1-year deal. So, like, I think he's back in the future. But if he's not, Brendan Donovan could see time at first base, Alec Burleson. So I think the playing time is there. I mean, you want him being 145, 50 games a year type of guy. But if he's playing 120 games, that's a lot of value for you still.
Yeah, so only for a star for Thomas Saggese.
I like that.
That was pretty much the consensus in the comments as well. So, yeah, cool. Another prospect that we got from Texas, Tekoa Roby, starting pitching prospect. I think I'm pretty excited about him. I feel like he could be a pretty good homegrown starting pitcher for us in the future. Definitely somebody that we're going to have to rely on if we want to rebuild this rotation with homegrown assets instead of like going out and signing all 5 starters. So I feel like he probably belongs in the same tier as Thomas Saggese. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm a little bit lower on Roby than most people, I think. And here's why, like, I see the grades and I love that. I love that his pitch is grayed out to be above average. I love the movement, all the, the advanced analytics love Tekoa Roby, and I'm happy about that. But I just haven't seen the results yet. Like, he was okay when he came over, but in my opinion, I would love to see him at a higher level than he's at now. And then like the Arizona Fall League, I know I shouldn't put too much stock in that, but it was pretty disappointing. Kind of got shelled there a couple times. So for me, it's probably I'll listen. I mean, I'm not saying I'm just going to trade him for nothing, and it would probably take a star. But like if the Rays called us up and said, hey, it's Glasnow and something else and cash for Tekoa Roby, like I'd consider it.
The Rays would terrify me.
Oh, yeah. Rays wanted to.
The Rays game calling, I'm not saying yes to that.
I don't think we should put too much stock in the whole don't trade with certain teams for that reason.
I agree.
But I understand what you're saying. He could be a star somewhere else. So,
yeah. And also, I think Glasnow is so much different. Well, if they're calling about a prospect, that's one thing. That means they probably like if the Rays call me about a prospect, then I need to reevaluate my prospect. So that's one thing. I don't know how they pull it off. Do they like act like they don't like a guy and then settle, and then it's like actually wanted him the whole time? Is that how they keep pulling it off? I don't get it. But Glasnow is different than Liberatore because Liberatore was the prospect. Like, you know what you're getting from Glasnow, and they want to move off him because of his salary. It's not like he makes $8 million. Everyone's like, why on earth do they want to trade him? And they know he's got some injury that he's about to come into spring training and have Tommy John. Like, he's not sitting on something that they know of. They just want to move off his salary. So I'm not really scared about trading the Rays here. But you're right. Like, if they wanted Roby, I'd be like, is he the next Shane McClanahan?
Yeah, let me look at Roby again. But I mean, a prospect, to be like a true like blue chip prospect, you have to have two things. You have to have the evaluations and the performance. Right now, we just haven't seen the performance yet from Roby. Does that mean he can't have that? He could have a great year in 2024. I'd be really happy to see that happen. And I am rooting for him. I think he's going to be really good. But it's not quite the same thing for me as like Jordan Walker coming up through the minors, where you had the evaluations and the performance was there.
Yeah. I guess you're saying these, so maybe to help me figure out, because I'm kind of leaning, but I'm like almost between only for a star and Allison right now.
I agree.
I feel like so with Tyler Glasnow, like I know that we talked to JC, you can have 9 tiers here. It's hard to pair to 4 or 5. Like, so JC, you're not trading for Glasnow, but do you think Glasnow is a star? Okay. I would say he's a star talent. He's just not like, I guess maybe the way we said only for a star, like, you imply some control in there.
Yeah, star value, probably star value.
I think I put Roby in only for a star still because I think about organizational depth, and I think I'm more willing to give up Tink Hence because I feel like he's a little bit like his ceiling might be higher than Roby, but I don't even know how much higher it is. But his floor seems a lot lower. But that's probably not even true because pitching guys are in. Roby's already had a shoulder thing, so that's kind of concerning. And because that's why he's out this year. And it's also something that intrigues me about him is I've heard from multiple people that the Rangers would not have traded him if he didn't have his shoulder issue. Like, he was a guy that they, no question, was not going to be a guy they dealt. And then they really just made it happen because, like, okay, we have to pull this trade off. We'll include Roby. He's hurt right now. So I think I lean toward only for a star because I'd rather give up like a Tink Hence or something, but that's splitting hairs a little bit. I don't know. I just feel like Roby is I feel like he's a middle of the rotation guy with the upside of a top tier guy, but probably not a top tier guy. When Hence I could see any scenario for, but I don't know.
Yeah, throw him in that tier, but he's at the back of that tier. And like we can organize it, right? So I would say like put someone first in that tier if it's higher in that tier, for example. Organization.
Yeah, we can do that.
Tier. Yeah. Victor Scott up next. He's untouchable for me. This might be a little bit of a surprise. Well, I mean, obviously friend of the podcast, but more importantly than that, I wouldn't move Victor Scott because the organizational depth here is as weak as it is anywhere. We need a center fielder. Victor Scott, I saw a report the other day that said he could be the center fielder on opening day. I mean, that's exciting stuff. So untouchable. I don't think there's a lot of discussion there.
Yeah, Derek Gold and John Denton that both put him as potentially the opening day star. I think both think it's a long shot, but like it's a thing. And then so organizational depth, but also with Scott, I actually think he's the safest prospect they have. And I think it's a weird thing to say. Like, I think he's honestly, and maybe this is too bold, but I'm going to go there. I think he's safer than Mason Wynn because he's going to be an 80 grade, like meaning top of the entire all of baseball, speed, stolen base guy. He will be the best guy in baseball talent-wise at stealing bases. He will also be at least a borderline, if not a Gold Glove caliber defender. Now the arm is a little shaky, but he gets to every ball. So you already know you've got a guy who can steal 40, 50, 60, 70 bases and can play the best center field defense in the league or around it. And then his bat continues to develop. So even if his bat is league average or worse, he's an extremely, extremely valuable player. And I think that's kind of his floor, is like a slightly below league average bat with elite defense and elite speed. If his bat continues to develop and he's got that 15 home run power and he's getting on base at 350, 360 clip, he's hitting for a high average. Oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. Is he like a consistent all-star, maybe not, but he's like a consistently really good player that you don't have to worry about at a position that is so hard to find in baseball, I'm all in on Scott.
Yep, I agree. Friend of the podcast. He's going to come up and he's going to do great things. Tommy Edman has 1 year left. We're probably going to, we lost Sandy. That's fine. We'll continue.
Who needs him?
Yeah, so Edman's going to be gone in like a year. Lars Nootbaar, I don't think they want him to be a center fielder. He plays better on the corners. So I don't see any reason to trade Victor Scott unless it's for like, I don't know, unless the Braves come calling and they're like, we want Acuna.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, every prospect has a price, right? Like every player has a price. If something happens, or like, I don't know, I probably wouldn't even give up Victor Scott for like Mike Trout because that's just too much money. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's a really good point though. Like I think we always like sometimes when we say untouchable, like I asked John Mosaic about this actually right around the 2022 trade deadline because Jordan Walker still wasn't up yet, and I was like, hey, like how do you feel about a Jordan Walker and like what do you, and he instantly, like, I didn't even ask him if you trade him, and he said Jordan is one of those guys that you do not move. Like we love him, we're super excited about him. And then he said, but if Mike Trout becomes available, like anyone's potentially available. Now that was 2 years ago, so like Trout's values change. So, but like I think that's how you have to be as an executive. If Spencer Strider or Ronald Acuna Jr. is on the board, like it changes things. But anyways, Ivan Herrera. He's really interesting to me because now that they've cut Andrew Kisner, I probably put him in untouchable because your catching depth is really weak, especially because you have a little bit of concern about Wilson Contreras. Like obviously I think he'll be fine, but like if they pull that stuff again with him, like I don't know what they're going to do if they don't have Herrera. They shouldn't, and it sounds like they're not going to.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I would have listened for Herrera. He might have even been on the trade block. I was really surprised that they got rid of Kisner. I thought, especially with Contreras, all the situations with him not being familiar with the pitching staff, that they would keep Kisner around because he was so familiar with everybody. But I mean, he's not on the team anymore. So yeah, Herrera's probably untouchable or only for a star for me.
For me, I would probably have Herrera in the only for a star tier. I've been really high on him for a long time. I don't think Kisner being gone changes my evaluation of him that much because I never saw Kisner as a potential everyday catcher anyway. And the way I'd like to see Herrera used is as at least a guy in a timeshare or maybe an everyday role. Like I'd love to see Contreras DH a little bit more often. I'd like to see Herrera behind the plate probably 80 times this year if it was, me making the decisions. But like you said, everyone has a price. And I think the depth at catcher is still better than the depth in center field, at least top to bottom, because the Cardinals, it wouldn't hurt us long-term the way it would hurt us long-term to move on from Scott.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go down to only for star too. Because I guess like at the end of the day too, like if for some reason, like if the White Sox are saying we want Herrera and you say no, that's dumb. Because you can go sign a stopgap backup catcher. And like that's not a huge deal. So I actually that was my instant gut reaction, but I'd actually probably put him between only for a star and I'll listen.
I'd have him head of Roby, at least for me.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Okay. Chase Davis. So Cardinals first round pick of this last year. It's kind of a weird one. Like got like 100 plate appearances. There's some concern about him switching to wood bats. He has like raw power, but he didn't hit a single home run in 100 plate appearances.
That's fine.
Didn't really have a good or batting average either. But again, like not going to take anything really away from that. He's a guy that could be stick in center field long term, but is probably more likely a corner outfield bat. Depending on where you look, he's a top 3 to 7 prospect in the Cardinals organization right now. Everyone has different opinions on him. Swing comp, again, player comp kind of, but like that's like 100% outcome is Carlos Gonzalez. People like he's like really good friends with him now because their swings look so similar. I think the weird part about Davis for me is that like I don't know how much other teams would value him. So like, are you giving up a guy that in a year is going to be a top 50 prospect, but you're selling on him when no one's going to pay for him like that.
Yeah.
I think I'd put him in I'll listen because I'm not going to let him make or break a deal.
Yeah.
But I can't say only for a start either, though.
Same exact spot for me. He's at the very top of I'll listen. Like you said, I'm not going to let a deal not happen for a current star because a guy in single A. I mean, anybody in single A, unless obviously it's like Jordan Walker. But the national reaction was great when the Cardinals selected this guy. Like, people were all over it. They said that's a great pick all over the place. I saw people giving the Cardinals an A for that selection. So obviously the talent's there, the perception's there. We haven't seen the performance yet, but he's just so young. I hate dealing guys who are just drafted unless they like come in, shatter expectations after being taken like the 5th round or something. Like, I'd be more interested in dealing Travis Honeyman than Chase Davis. So for me, Davis probably closer to untouchable than will be moved. I'll listen feels good.
Sounds good to me. All right, DrewRom.com. I mean, I think it's on the. I'd put him on the trade block.
On the trade block.
He's like a 5th starter at best, and probably more of a long term, which is good depth. But like, again,
he's better than Jack Flaherty was last second half. So I mean,
yeah, that is helpful. So yeah, trade block. I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, Rom's like absolute best case scenario. He turns into like a Clark Schmidt, maybe. I feel like they have kind of similar stuff. Neither one will blow you away with the fastball. They can get outs if they're on. Like, we saw a couple times when Rom looked on, and it's like, hey, this is a guy that could go 6 innings and give up 3 runs. But he's never going to dominate. So yeah, it feels like a good
and
spot.
like Rom, like top players like that, like you need guys like that in your system because chances are you're not going to have 5 aces in the hole. And so, like, sometimes I see people be like, "Oh, you should just package him, Kloffenstein, and Roberts and Bedell, and like all these guys." And it's like you need pitching depth. Like, so, like I feel varying levels about those guys, but you need at least a few of those kind of arms in your system. Like even Matthew Liberatore, it's like he's not meeting expectations originally, but he still has value.
We forgot to put him on the list.
We'll have an honorable mentions section at the end. I've thought of a few guys right now who we didn't even.
I can't believe we forgot Matthew Liberatore.
Yeah, let's just do a run it. He's on the trade block for me.
Bottom of I'll listen for me.
Yeah, I think he's like the very bottom where I'm not like gonna move him I'm not looking to like, hey, who do you want Matthew Liberatore? Because I just don't think he carries that value. But if someone wants him, sure.
So. I'll say this: lefties that throw 98 don't grow on trees. I don't care what's wrong with the control right now. Like, he would not be the first pitcher ever to figure it out at 26. And he has tools that, like, when you just take everything down to the studs, he might have the best tools, at least of any, like, pitching prospect in the Cardinals system still. Like, velocity from the left side. So I'll listen for me for Liberatore.
Yeah, I'm not going to rush to trade him because I don't think he has any value. But if he wants to roll in the bullpen, I'm not opposed.
Yeah. Let's do Jerpy now too because he's being asked about. Oh man, he's a guy I really like. I'd probably put him toward the top of Allison, where it's like because of those elbow injuries and because it's like he's really funky and fun, but like I just don't. He's not like a can't miss pitching prospect. And most pitching prospects aren't like the top guys flame out and then a random guy pops like Spencer Strider pops out, but then like Jack Leiter falls off a cliff. Like it's just you never really know what to do with these guys. But I'd probably put Jerpy toward the top of Allison.
For me, I think Jerpy I'd have right in front of Tekoa Roby. I think him, Hentz, and Roby can all be compared. But yeah, I just put it in the chat. That's my like full name. But I would take Roby or I would take Jerpy because the elbow injuries, in my opinion, are less concerning than shoulder injuries.
Okay, that's fair.
Dealing with elbow problems long term. So, yeah, I mean, you can't get Tommy John on the shoulder.
All right, you've convinced me. I like it.
And Kyle Reese loves Jerpy, and if you like spend 2 minutes on his Twitter feed, he'll convince you.
That's true. I remember he put out his prospect rankings last year and have him tied with Wynn. And wait, was Walker on that too? Like he was like, I was like, how is he 1D? But I read through the write up. I was like, dang, Cooper Jerpy.
He could be really good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how he missed that. That's my bad. But anyways, okay. So Liberatore, end of Allison.
Favorite prospects.
What was that?
Jimmy Crooks is one of Jeff Jones's favorite prospects.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He told some stories about him when he was on here. It was really fun.
Okay. I'd probably put Crooks and Allison. Like, again, organizational depth. Like, I know we're about to talk about another catcher, but they don't grow on trees. I'm not going to, like, I think on the block for me is like, I'm actively shopping or like I would be throwing them into a deal. Allison is like they're interchangeable as like the third piece or like they're a pawn for me. Like they have value.
Yep, I think so. We need catching depth. I think there's another catcher on our 40 man. I'm not too familiar with the prospects. I think he was brought up earlier. But definitely need more catching, which is something that's weird to say as a Cardinal fan who's watched Yadier Molina for my entire life. But I think Allison is pretty fitting.
I would agree with him there. The organizational depth at catcher is pretty good, though, because after Crooks, we're going to talk about Bernal later, who I'm super high on. And I think he's the most complete catcher in this system. Crooks has a really high offensive ceiling, a couple question marks as a defender and a receiver. But again, I wouldn't be actively shopping him. Could end up being really good. Had a great season, struggled in the fall league. Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him. Yeah.
Okay, let's do Kloffenstein next. Again, I put him probably as an on the trade block type guy, probably more above Rom. I think he probably profiles back in the rotation at best. Maybe he's a bullpen arm. Again, you like that depth. I really like that they got Rom and him and Roberts, and they have a lot of depth arms now, but he's not staying in the way of anything for me.
Yeah, I would have him ahead of Rom.
Same.
Because, I just think like he has the much higher ceiling, looked better in the minors, and he has better performance going back. Like Rom at no point in the minors has really like excelled. He had a terrible season with Norfolk, which is Baltimore's AAA affiliate before he was traded. So I wasn't really surprised. But also he was older than everybody else and already a 40-man guy, which is why he got to play instead of Kloffenstein or Robersa. But for me, like throwing Robersa in here too, I would say it goes Kloffenstein, Robersa, Rom, all in on the trade block for me. I'm not going to package them, but I would not be surprised to see one of them go.
Yeah, I'd probably put Robersa as my top guy, Kloffenstein 2, Rom 3 out of the ranking, I think. I like that. Like Robersa, I think is 22. Like he's really young for AAA. I like that he's been a fast riser. So I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, they were really aggressive with Robersa, notably. I couldn't believe they stuck him in AAA because he hadn't succeeded in AA, and then he got knocked around a few times at AAA and then like weirdly settled in. So his value might be at an all-time high right now. So I would not be opposed to the Cardinals moving him this offseason.
Yeah. So Bernal, he's a really interesting prospect. Like even back last offseason when they signed Contreras, I started to become more open to the idea of moving Herrera. And I thought it made sense, especially with the way they were treating Herrera at that point because of the emergence of Bernal. I just think offensively he could be really interesting, and then defensively, like he just seems like an all-around catcher that I would really like for the Cardinal system. I'd probably put him and Allison above Crooks. How do you guys feel about that?
I might even be open to putting him at the very back of only for a star. He's still very young. And I like him more than I like Davis because for Bernal, the performance at every level has been really encouraging. He's taken steps forward in at least some area of his game every year. And I've heard from some people that he's the most similar to Yadier Molina as a defender and a receiver and someone who deals really well with pitching staffs. Like everybody seems to be very high on this kid. And I just think there's a reason. The Cardinals are a catching factory, and I think he's the best one they have right now. So yeah, I mean, I'm really, really in on Bernal.
I forgot he was only 19. I was thinking he's like 21.
He is super young. And not only that, like for him to put up a 743 OPS at Palm Beach last year, because Palm Beach is not a hitter-friendly league. You see guys hit a ball here and like their stats plummet. This is a guy whose stuff stayed the same at that level, which is really, really impressive. Yeah. Only for a star.
Yep, I'll let you guys handle all those prospects because I need to work on my prospect knowledge this offseason, that's for sure. But Dylan Carlson is going to be traded, right? Like, I think he has to be. I don't know. He doesn't strike me as fourth outfielder kind of situation. Like, we can definitely get more value for Dylan Carlson than being a defensive replacement center fielder, especially when we have Victor Scott coming up. Because if we really needed that, we could just let Scott cook for a little bit for like a stretch run. So I feel like Carlson has to be traded.
Yeah, Are we doing this based on what we think will happen or what we would do?
Or what we would do, right?
Yeah,
That's what.
Yeah. Personally,
I'm
not too high on Carlson either.
So here's my argument. I would put him in on the trade block or I'll listen. Probably on the trade block because I don't think you need to move Carlson. He makes below $2 million this year. Again, I think he is more valuable as a trade piece than he is as a fourth outfielder. If you're starting him every day, it's a different conversation. It's like you still bank on the ceiling potentially. But there's another name on this list that I think you have the ability to move if you keep Carlson. And that name is someone I think they need to consider moving at this point. And so that's why I would put Carlson in on the trade block, even though he's likely to be moved either way. But I think like his ability to play center field is important with Tommy Edman basically being the only guy on the roster right now. I mean, Newbar can play it, but apparently they see him as a corner outfielder. Yeah, sure, Palacios can play it, but like, again, really small sample size. It's not enough to move off Dylan Carlson to say, oh, we have Palacios. Like, I see some people already being like, they know who I'm talking about. Yeah. So that's where I would put Carlson in on the trade block because I think you have the ability to move guys around.
Yeah, I feel mean just having a Tyler O'Neill tier.
We'll find someone else for that tier. I know a guy I'd probably put in there right now.
So just put him at the front of on the trade block?
Yeah. I would agree with that placement.
Okay. But I get I also see the argument that he will be moved. Just like I get that, but I think if I'm thinking strategically, his salary is so low, and he still hits left-handed pitching really well. He can play all three outfield positions. I don't think you need to move him, and you can recoup value.
Oh yeah, Carlson just reminds me of like Manuel Margot, a guy where it's like so toolsy. Everyone describes him that way for so long. But like we just never saw Margot put it all together. And he had a couple good seasons, obviously, with like, 6 WAR seasons, but it was that like 6 WAR Tommy Edman style where he just like is a warmonger and compiles it all over the place, but you don't really notice. And that's like, I think Carlson's ceiling right now. The power just hasn't been there, which is so disappointing because that was one of his calling cards as a prospect. So
yeah, I wanted to hit on John's comment real quick about Carlson as the DH. That was, I think they misspoke on 101 when they were talking about that. They were talking about Gorman being the DH, not Carlson. So yeah, just wanted to address that.
Yep.
Although I'd like for the DH to be someone completely different. But that's okay.
You found a way.
He's signing
Sandy,
with the Dodgers.
Go ahead and cook with your second favorite person ever besides Sonny.
Oh yeah, dude. I am like probably, I would say Nick Dunn is my second favorite person of all time, but Ian Bedell is right up there. I am a massive Ian Bedell fan. He's a guy to me that like him cooking all season was just so affirming for me because I've been saying it. Okay. I was like first with this. I love Ian Bedell. Also Mizzou grad. So like kind of a homegrown guy, like keep him in Missouri. I would really hate to see them trade him. I think it'd be a huge mistake. He's a guy that like was great in college. He's a developed pitcher. He's advanced. I don't know why the Cardinals didn't promote him. I really wish they'd be more aggressive with him. I understand handling his work or like, limiting his workload a little bit. But for me, Bedell's in the I'll listen tier. I think he has like a ceiling of maybe a low end 2, high end 3. This is a guy who could slot into your rotation and be a very, very productive starter. I love his strikeout ability. Yeah, like I think he's kind of the total package for a mid-rotation arm. He's going to give you innings at some point. He was very durable in college. I think he can be that way again.
See, Sandy,
velocity, big fan.
With Rule 5 at the end of the week, he might not even be on the team.
No, don't say that. I actually think that's not true because they'd have to keep him on their roster all season, and I don't see a team wanting him on their 26-man all year because of he's just like not advanced enough right now. But if the Rays took him and like used him in a bullpen capacity all year, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I've seen arguments because people are like, it's so weird that they protected like Pages, but they didn't protect because you could protect Pages later this offseason.
Yeah, I know.
Like I don't really get why they did that then. Or you didn't have to protect him. Sorry, they could add him. He was in Rule 5 eligible.
Yeah.
Bedell, I've heard that they maybe didn't aggressively promote because they didn't want him to be even more attractive to other teams. If they didn't
I like that.
Now, I personally don't think the Cardinals were thinking that that. Yeah. I don't know. But it could be an argument. Also, we're at 100 viewers right now. Like at the same, like this is fun. Pop in, guys. Let's get some more comments in here. But yeah, vote in while you're getting. Oh, Roddy's just said that went down 99. Nice. Okay, Rock. How do you say?
I just wanted to say that for whatever reason, I always confuse Ian Bedell and Connor Thomas. And for whatever reason, every time I like make content with Connor Thomas and I look up a picture of Connor Thomas, instead of the actual human being Connor Thomas, I get a picture of a train from Thomas the Tank Engine named Connor, and it just makes me like. That's all. I just wanted to say that. I don't know why.
Really short rant incoming because you brought it up. The Cardinals don't deserve criticism for a lot of things. They deserve criticism for the way they handle the 40-man roster. It's incompetent over and over again. Okay, that's over. Moving on to Max Ratchik. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. I've been told.
Yeah, it's Ratchik.
I'm really high on him too. He had a great season. Minor league pitcher of the year for the Cardinals. He's at the very top of I'll listen, ahead of Davis, in my opinion.
Yeah, So would you put Bedell above Davis too?
I'd put Bedell right behind Davis.
So you're higher on Ratchik. So why can't I say it right now? I know how to say it, but like my mouth won't. You're higher on him than Bedell?
I think so. Just because like the performance for Ratchik was there. It was insane. Like, I mean, he seems like he has a higher ceiling to me. He's undersized for a starter for sure. And like maybe the velocity's not there. But he just seemed so advanced for his level. Like I watched a couple of his starts. I had the pleasure of watching Max cook this season. And like, I mean, he is the total package in my opinion. I think he's a guy that the whole league is going to be on notice when he blitzes through AAA next year. Like he's a guy that could move quickly. And I think you'll see him at the big league level sooner than Bedell, which is why I'm a little higher on him too. But I love Bedell too. So it's tough.
I like it. I'll put him in Allison too. I don't have strong opinions on where he goes on that, so I trust you on that, Sandy. It's good.
Big fan. He's so good.
All right, Tommy Edman's on the trade block. I'm sorry.
So I mean, I just figured Carlson would be moved. That's the one thing I was.
Let me give my little spiel for a second here. I think you hold on to Carlson and you move Tommy Edman. Now, again, like if there's a deal where you can hold on to Edman and you only go Carlson and you pull off getting your number one and all that kind of stuff, then you don't need to move on from Tommy Edman. But I think you've got a guy who's making over $6 million this year. He's going to probably be close to $10 million in 2024, and then he's a free agent. I think we're really underrating how much money Tommy Edman's about to get paid.
Yeah.
I don't know if he hits $100 million, but like I think he could. Like he's a guy that could get a lot of money, and I think he's a guy that I'm scared to pay because he like just is a league average bat. Yes, he's great defensively. Yes, he's really fast, but those are like, especially the speed. I think that's a tool that could fall off. Sandy, the Brandon Nimmo contract, I do think is something that you could kind of look at for him.
Oh yeah,
and I'm not paying him that when I have Victor Scott, Brendan Donovan, Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman, Thomas JC. I've got all these pieces. Again, I'm a huge Tommy Edman guy. I love him, but I just don't think he's worth it anymore. And I think you can move him and get a starter or get a high-end reliever. Like for Tommy Edman, it's got to be a really good reliever. You could do something like that, free up some money there. I think it makes more sense long-term. I do think they have to get creative if they move him now because you really don't have a backup shortstop. So I think you probably have to sign someone. Like you could do Donovan or Sajacy, but Donovan's not a natural shortstop. And Sajacy, you just don't know if he's actually ready for Major League Baseball yet.
Yeah.
So I think you probably have to sign a veteran shortstop, but that's fine. You can do that. So I'm totally in on trading Tommy Edman if the right deal's there. Not Taylor Motter.
Paul DeYoung, even though he just signed.
Hey, throw him in the Cease package.
Ooh.
We'll take Paul back. Maybe that's why they signed him. Who knows? They're like Cardinals want him as the backup shortstop. So, anyways, he's top of the trade block for me. I think
I might even have him in the will be moved because of the salary right now. That's different. I would put him in that tier with O'Neill personally. I think he will be moved for me, but I think like will be moved is like I also think the Cardinals will move him, and I don't know if the Cardinals would move Tommy Edman.
I'm just sad the Cardinals didn't sign Corey Seager, so we could like just get rid of all of these shortstop guys. I really wanted Corey Seager 2 years ago. Oh well, because I feel like if Mason Wynn doesn't pan out, which is there's no guarantee that he does, like there's a chance that he doesn't. I think his floor is pretty low because he plays such good defense. But if his bat just never pans out, there's a chance that we have to rely on Tommy Edman next season. And the shortstop market is very thin. You saw MLB.com's ranking. I don't know if that's true or not, but they had Paul DeJong as the best free agent shortstop available. I feel like I could find a better name, but I don't know. My hot take is that we should have gotten one of the shortstops the last 2 years. Corey Seager was my favorite. Trey Turner is a close second, but
Marcus Semien. That's who I really wanted.
Yeah, even Semien could have worked well.
Tim Anderson out there. I love that.
That would be so bad. Oh, I've heard the Tigers are going to move Baez, but like they're going to eat all the contract.
If they Baez is being paid so much. He's still like elite with the glove, but like
they'd have to eat the whole thing. Like I'm not paying anything for Baez right now.
Have you guys seen the edited clip of Baez swinging at a pickoff attempt that went around? Yeah, so good.
Oh man. I think honestly, if you like, they'd have. I think I'd only pay Baez like $5 million a year at most. If they didn't eat that much money, I'm out. I don't even care what the asking price is.
There's this John Boy Media cricket clip because I think they like cricket over there a lot, and was like showing how a cricket throw was like similar to an infielder throw, and the thrower for the infield that they showed was Javier Baez like throwing to first base. But like Javier Baez might as well be a cricket player because he swings at all his balls in the dirt anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
That's awesome.
Oh man, I so wish the Cubs would have like brought him back. That would have been the best thing ever for him to be like this on the Cubs. But oh well, he's a Tiger.
Dansby Swanson, who they want to offload already.
Didn't you guys know that Bo Bichette was on the market, or at least according to every Cubs fan in existence?
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah. Cubs fans seem to
told me.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's if you want Bo Bichette, if you're a Cubs fan, you could just speak it into existence. The Blue Jays don't even want to have to move him. The Cubs just have to say it, and then they'll do it. So,
well, it would be so funny if the Blue Jays came and stole Ohtani from them.
Oh, I would love that.
I'm so rooting for the Blue Jays to get Ohtani. It's not even funny.
Absolutely. All right, we got to get back together here.
Yep.
Steven Matz.
On the block.
On the block, yeah. I'll give you that.
Remember when we tier listed all the players at the All-Star break, and we had a tier just for Steven Matz and Trace Barrera?
Yes. And the only reason Barrera was in there was because we felt bad about leaving Steven Matz in his own tier. I like Matz. I put an article up on Redbird Rants a while back. I'm the conductor of the Steven Matz hype train, okay? Look at those FIPS every single year. 3.76, 3.75, 3.79. Like, he's very consistent, at least in that aspect of his game. He just needs to stay healthy. And for me, he can't. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can even see an argument of him being at the bottom of I'll listen, because it's like you don't need to move him. He could be a good reliever, a good long man. He had a sub-2 ERA in his return to the rotation. It was like 6 starts, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was really good out of the bullpen too. So like you do not need to move Steven Matz. But I think in terms of like we're thinking going to get an ace, you probably have to move Steven Matz to make that work unless it's Dylan Cease. So that's where I put him on trade block.
Yeah,
Nolan Gorman's untouchable.
Oh, untouchable, yeah. I'd put him above Scott, actually. Well,
I'm not trading Nolan Gorman for anything, unless it's unless the Dodgers are going to part with Ohtani and give us like half of his salary. Like, there's no reason to trade Nolan Gorman. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm still concerned a little bit about the back stuff because it really feels like the Cardinals are. And I mean, I don't know. It's just I put him in untouchable, but I'm not going to go that high, like you said, Andrew. Like, I think there's a world I could be convinced. Like, if the White Sox wanted just Gorman for Cease, I have to listen.
Oh, yeah.
But assuming it's not that simple, then yeah.
I think for me, like, Gorman has one tool that might be the best tool in the entire system with his power. And like, I hate parting with like singular tools that are that great. And for me, like Scott's glove could be a generational type of like outfield defense. Gorman could be a generational second baseman in terms of power output. Like, you don't see second baseman hit 40 home runs ever, and he could do it next year. So really hard to move on from him. Yep. I love what Brady just said in the chat there. Like, totally agree. How many second basemen have hit 40 homers in MLB history?
It's like 3 or 4.
Jeff Kent.
No, Dan Uggla never did. Sargent Simeon did.
Yeah, Simeon just did that.
Someone. There's
And you
someone
see
on the
how
top of my
valuable
head.
Simeon is right
Alfonso
now.
Soriano.
Yeah. And I think Jeff Kent's the other one. I think he did it as a second baseman.
Also, I want to cover this or talk about this real quick. Yes, the back injuries, big concern. I wouldn't say he's quite O'Neal though yet. I think you got to have a little bit more of a track record of injuries for Gorman to make that. And I also think he's a little bit profile is a little bit safer too. Like he draws walks. He's a give that advantage over Tyler O'Neill as well, and positionally too against second base to gain that kind of power. But again, I am concerned about the injuries.
Yeah.
Gordon Graceffo, I think he's at the very top of our listen. I don't think he's an only for the star guy anymore to me.
I'd agree.
Especially if we're not counting Glasnow as a star type thing. I think Graceffo is like a major piece I'd move for him. So I'd put him at the very top of our listen, which is kind of weird. It's like last offseason, the Cardinals were getting so many calls on him. So, which is part of the reason why I'm like, it's another example of why it's like you don't like, I'm trying to think, like Dylan Carlson's a guy that no one would have moved when he was a prospect. And it's like, well, that didn't age well. Graceffo last year, everyone's like, he's the next frontline starter for the Cardinals. And it's like, well, I like him a lot still. Could be a mid-rotation guy, but he's okay to move.
Yeah, Graceffo's a weird guy. He didn't have a ton of pedigree, like coming up. Drafted out of Villanova, who's like hardly produced any MLB talent. Taken in the 5th round too, which is like, that's not a terrible thing. But obviously, like no one was chomping at the bit to get him in the 1st or 2nd round. So yeah, it's a little bit of a weirder guy. Do I think he could be a really good pitcher someday? Of course. He's a power pitcher. Cardinals don't have a ton of those guys in their system, but his fastball was not as good this year as we hoped to be. And I think that's a major point against him. So I like him in the I listen tier.
Yeah, I saw Tink Hence. Someone say I'm not trading him for anything. He's the Cardinals' future ace. I don't know about that. I've heard a lot of things about him potentially being a reliever. And if that's what's going on with him, then I don't know. It's very interesting for me. Probably only for a star, but he's definitely not untouchable for me.
Yeah, I think this is a make or break year for Tink Hence. He can come back from it, but like Baseball America was super high on him last year during their write-ups of Tink Hence. They said he had the potential to be the best pitching prospect in all of baseball, and he was a top 40 guy, I think, for them at that time. And now I think he's the Cardinals' 4th ranked prospect by them. And they had major concerns about how, as his workload went up, his production went down, which was a concern that once you start giving him more innings, he's not as elite anymore. And then especially his breaking ball fell off this year. It just wasn't the pitch it needed to be. Again, he totally, he's never hit that kind of inning workload before. So he potentially then, Pablo Lopez is a good example of this. He fell apart in the second half of the Marlins because it was the first time in his career he ever hit that many innings. Very next year, he comes back with the Twins and is really good. So, it could just be he has to build himself into that. So I put him in only for a star. I think right below JC makes sense. For me, Roby and Hence are kind of interchangeable, but I'm not banking on him being an ace.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I might even like Jerpy better than both of them just because of the durability he's shown before. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely tough with Hence. He wouldn't be the first prospect ever to have a down season and then just go off. And if he goes off this year, I would love that. Love that. Nothing more than that would be awesome. But yeah, I think that's a good spot for him.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not down on him. I'm just you have to be realistic about pitching prospects that there's a once in a blue moon you have a pitching prospect that you know is going to turn out for sure. I feel like they're just so unpredictable compared to bats, which is actually I really the Cardinals swung the pendulum too much and now are terrible at pitching development. But I really like that they became a hitting development organization because you can bank on a JC being good. You can bank on Donovan, Gorman, Newbar. That's way safer. And you can go trade and sign the pitching. They need to get back to being able to develop pitching too. But they were a pitching factory for so long, and then none of the guys turned out. And a lot of them was because of injury. It's just you can't control that.
Yeah, Brendan Donovan. I don't know if he's untouchable. I don't want to put him in the same tier as Gorman because I think Gorman is a lot more one of a kind than Donovan. I feel like you can get Donovan's tools from 3 or 4 different players, but I don't know. I don't want to trade him.
Donovan's untouchable for me.
Let's let the chat go off here. Please let us know. We have a lot of you are in here right now. It's been active. It's been great. What do you think about Brendan Donovan? Is he untouchable? Only for a star. I'm right now. I'm debating between end of untouchable. He could be above Victor Scott though, and top of only for a star because it's I made the argument. It's if it's Donovan and Well, I guess I said this about Gorman too. So maybe it's fair to have him an untouchable, but know that he technically could be moved.
No one's untouchable, like, right? Unless it's like,
Yeah. But I'm thinking like if the White Sox wanted Donovan for Cease or Donovan plus Graceffo for Cease or Donovan plus Hence, I maybe do that.
I don't even know if I would. Donovan is like an elite bat right now at 26, only 2 years under his belt. Like he might be one of the best on base guys in the entire National League. He's a great bat. And it feels like he came out of nowhere. I don't know. Like part of that though is like you feel like you're playing with house money with a guy like Brendan Donovan.
Yeah.
But I don't want to fall into that trap. Like Donovan's untouchable for me.
He's untouchable.
Plus I spent like $100 on a powder blue Brendan Donovan jersey. And like I can't not be wearing that to the ballpark anymore. I look so good at it. So
and the only reason I look so good at it, Sandy, I quote.
Hey, we got a Lids affiliate link if you want to go pick up your Brendan Donovan powder blue jersey so you can look as good as Sandy. It's in the description. So, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get your gray cream alternate.
But, I did.
I'm gonna get the gray at some point.
I think it's the gray. It's so sad.
They'll have it at some point. Gray.
Hopefully.
I think the reason I just want to be clear, I'm not low on Donovan. I like in some ways like I value him and Gorman very similarly. Like I think you have to give advantage to Gorman. I'm just thinking at the end of the day, like if the Cardinals want to make a big move, you can't make all of your really talented, all of your very valuable players untouchable. It just becomes extremely hard to make a deal then. That's part of the reason I think I've become trying to convince myself Donovan's tradable, but even then I hate it. So he's untouchable.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen comments about Newt Bar Walker. Those guys aren't even on this list because the Cardinals have kind of already said they're not going to move them for really anything.
Yep.
Both untouchable though. Like, you know.
Yeah, of course. Mason Wynn. Only for a star, right?
Only for a star.
Yeah.
I feel like I should put him at the head of that.
Probably. Yeah. There's a reason
very
he's at the big league level, and Sajazi isn't right now.
Because, like, if we're parting with Tommy Edman, then, like, someone's got to play shortstop. So he also throws – he throws harder than this other prospect you might have heard of on the Reds.
Yeah, this guy who like had a really bad bummy second half.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember who I saw post his Baseball Savant page and was like drooling over him again, and I was like, I mean, I get it, he's got the tools, but like, can we stop with this? Oh my gosh.
Does anybody remember the Ben Verlander take where he was like, "Oh my gosh, if we have the All-Star game without Ellie, like I'm not gonna watch it." I was like, okay.
I really like Ben Verlander, but that was like his worst take.
Yeah. Ben Verlander, have you seen the Foolish Baseball Ben Verlander stuff? Like every time they get into a discussion, Bailey just cooks him. And it's so funny.
So here's a question I want to ask for you two and the chat. I feel like Wynn's probably the last guy we'll linger on for a little bit. Do you think if he hadn't debuted and he just tore up AAA the whole year, he would be untouchable?
Yes.
Like
I think
like if he hadn't had that month stretch. Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of bias from the stretch he had in MLB. I think his OPS plus was like 12. I'll double check right now, but it was not a good offensive production. But his WAR was like the same as Jordan Walker's. Oh no, it was 29. Okay.
Because he was so good defensively. Like that tool is here and it's arrived. And I would say for me, no. And that's because when I went into thinking about him for only for a star, like I thought about that. I did have that thought of, look, that could just be a bad stretch. Like hitters slump all the time. It just happens.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Trout came up in 2010 or 2011, right? And he was not good.
Not good. Yeah, his cup of coffee was very, very middling. So for me, like, no, it's the same for me. He would have been the very top of only for a star. Yeah, that's like, I feel good about that placement.
I think you can honestly, like, if I were doing this tier list, I could make it like Donovan and Gorman is their own tier, then Scott his own tier below them, then Wynn his own tier below them, then Sajazi, Hence, Herrera, Roby, Bernal. Like I'd almost put it like that, where it's like once you get to Sajazi, Hence, Herrera, Roby, Bernal, I'm not comfortable moving those guys, but like those are the ones I'm trying to move in a star trade. Wynn is like the next level up, and then like Scott, I maybe a world. Well, actually, like we said, Donovan, Gorman, Scott. There's like a world you move them for a star, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, and when just like some of those tools just pop off the page, and it's like you don't want to move that. It's the same thing as Gorman for me, where like Gorman's power is so amazing. Wynn could be the best defensive shortstop in the league at some point, and he definitely has the best arm of anybody we've ever seen play that position.
Yeah.
Like ever.
I kind of think his ceiling is like Dansby Swanson.
I'd be really happy if I wasn't
that's
paying $200 million for that guy.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think
No.
we like we wanted him to be Lindor. We wanted him to be this next great shortstop, which sure, it's in the range of outcomes, but like I think a more likely best case scenario is like a slightly above league average bat who could sometimes be 15 to 20% above league average, but you get him for the defense and speed.
Yeah.
Super
Which a shortstop is elite. Yeah.
Super valuable player.
Wow, we're landing with the drum roll, please. Everyone's been waiting for Pete Hansen and Alec Burleson.
I like it.
Yeah, Alec Burleson is a two-way player. I don't want to
we really buried the lead here.
Yeah, I demanded Pete Hansen be on here because I think he's like better than a lot of people give him credit for. He's one of those crafty lefties where it's like the Cardinals are really good at developing those guys, which is why I have him like the very bottom of I'll listen. Like I'm not actively shopping him because I think he's a guy that could turn out to be a number 4. And like if Hansen's your number 4 in 2026, I would not be surprised. So
yeah, I think too, like organizational depth. Again, you've got a lot of AAA guys, but you don't have a lot of low end guys. So you don't really want to move off of a ton of single A pitchers. You kind of need you need healthy depth at every level of the organization. So I like that. And then Alec Burleson, I'd put him on like top, like maybe right between Edman and Carlson on the trade block, where it's like I'm open to moving him. I really like him. I think he's got a future as a bat, but again, I think he's the kind of guy that could get you Tyler Glasnow, who can get you something really interesting in return. So the Yankees like him. You could potentially get some of those really good stuff guys from them. So
can we just rename this tier real quick?
No. Just call it the O tier.
The O tier.
Like that's so tough. But if there's anybody we didn't address that you really want to hear about, like let me know. You know, we would love to
Goldschmidt is somebody people are talking about. I don't like Goldschmidt with like the rest of these guys. Like he doesn't really fit in on this list. Most other than like Matz, most of these guys are like young.
But I mean, if you want to throw Goldie on there, I'd say he's untouchable. So is Arenado. Yeah. Like so is most of the guys. Oh, Luke and Baker. That's a really good one.
I'll listen. Like top of I'll listen.
Oh, I would have him
on the trade block.
Below Bedell for me. Maybe even below. Yeah, probably right below Matz on the trade block for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't see any future with Baker here, really, especially the way they use the
Moises
DH.
Gomez. So, last week I said Moises Gomez was Adolis Garcia, and I think
Moises Gomez is bottom of on the trade block for me. Michael McGreevy, that's another one we should have talked about.
Probably like below Rom, I think. I put him below, like really low on the trade block too. People like there's a reason he didn't get promoted, and he doesn't get mentioned by the front office very often. His stuff is just it's tough. It was a kind of a waste of a first round pick, but I think. Oh, is that the George Kirby draft? I don't think it is. I think Zach Thompson was.
Yes.
Oh man. So
stuff happens. How about Cesar Prieto? That's an
I'd probably put him at top of that trade block.
Yeah, right around Matz. Because I like him as a depth piece, but he's not as good as Jay-Z.
Yeah. I'm seeing Jerpy. We talked about him earlier. And only for a star somewhere in there below Wynn and Sajacy. Will Taylor Motter be back?
Taylor Motter will be moved. We moved him 3 times last year, actually.
Yeah, breaking. Where was
3 times, and he came back every time.
Wait, how do I? Guys, there's breaking news.
Wait, what?
Breaking news. Taylor Motter, 6 years, $400 million. Oh, guys, I gotta turn off this music.
The passing button.
How about Shohei Ohtani signed? Like you made me freak out.
He hit the passing button 10 times. Hold up. I saw Bryson Motts, and I want to talk about him because I love Bryson Motts.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Bryson
you made me think Shohei Ohtani just signed.
No, Shohei's not signing right now. He might sign later today, though, I guess, dude. That'd be crazy.
So Okay, let's cover a few more real quick. Matz. Let's do Matz. Let's do Jonathan Mejia, and let's do Travis Honeyman.
And I saw
And
Baez
we'll
on
probably
there
be
too.
done.
Packy
Okay, we can do Baez too.
Mott's for me, I'll listen. Baez for me on the trade block. The swing and miss is just too great, and he still might have some value that he'll lose. Jonathan Mejia, top of I'll listen because he's so young. And Travis Honeyman, right below Ratchick, probably. He had a much better performance than Davis. If you disagree with any of those strongly, let me know.
I'd probably put him below Davis just because of the pedigree, but
That's
otherwise
fair.
I agree with what you said on that. So
fair.
Makes sense. Chow, Wubin Chow,
Wanbin Cho.
Wanbin Choi. I can't remember.
Good.
Top of our list.
Yeah,
I really like him.
Yeah. Have you seen he practices his bat flips?
Yeah, it's so awesome.
They're really cool.
Yeah, he's a guy I've seen a lot of people speculate he could shoot up the Cardinals prospect boards pretty soon here. So
yeah,
and again, he's like a young outfielder too, so he's still got years away. So like organizationally, that's helpful. Where he's not like if he was a AAA guy, it's harder to justify having him because you just have so many outfielders. But like 2025, 2026, you might need another outfielder. So
yeah, I really
like he's interesting. Yeah,
I like Cho a lot. I think Cho's a guy that the performance was great last year. He had his first full season, stayed healthy, and was really good.
He's got really good barrel stats. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I really like him.
He's ball really hard.
Yeah, I really like it.
He has swagger too. You don't see it from Cardinals prospects all the time. It's pretty crazy.
It's really fun watching guys that look like a slap hitter but hit it really hard. Like Ichiro didn't. Like Ichiro hit line drives, but like Ohtani's like slap hitter ish, but like demolishes the ball, and it's like Chow. He's not up there, but he's like. Anyways, it's just fun. His swing's so cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
well, that's it for the tier list, but we're going to wrap up with our winter meetings predictions. We're going to each throw out a few predictions. And I don't know. Who do you think the Cardinals are going to get?
Man, my fun one or my realistic one?
And my fun one is that we signed Yamamoto, but I don't think that's going to happen.
That's mine too.
Yep. I think it's in the range of outcomes.
Yeah.
Unlike other people. So I think my prediction Cease. I would love Glasnow. I'd love Yamamoto, but
Cease.
I just think Cease makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I feel like Cease might be a Dodger by the end of the week.
Could be.
I think he's going to be gone, but I don't know. I feel like we're going to have to give up way too much to get him in terms of major league talent, and I don't know if I'm ready to part with that. But if it takes a big prospect package, I feel like we're going to get outbid by the Dodgers. So I really don't know about him. No, we're not signing Rich Hill. If we, please no.
I'm going to say this. I think the Dodgers are going to acquire Cease, and the pitching market's going to freeze after that. I think the Rays are going to want to hold on Glasnow, knowing they'll trade him, but maybe want to get a little more value out of some teams that start to get a bit desperate. I could see the Cardinals making a couple plays for bullpen arms. Matsui, I saw him in the chat earlier. Really like Matsui. I'd like to see the Cardinals sign him, but I think that happens after the meeting still. He's been officially posted, right? Andrew,
he's an international free agent, no posting fee.
Oh, that's
really
big.
I really like Matsui because you don't have to pay anything else. No draft pick, nothing.
And I just see so many, this is a great offseason for middle tier bullpen help. That's something that that market doesn't get talked about, but it's very rare, I think, that you have this many respectable relievers hit the market. Normally those guys have more control, or normally you just don't have that many old guys who are all decent. Like John Brebbia. Okay. I mentioned him earlier. Really like Brebbia. Would love to see him back in St. Louis. And he's probably $3 million. I'd be surprised if it's more than that. Phil Maton, I saw thrown in the chat earlier, another really solid arm. So yeah, I would love any of those. I think they'll acquire one bullpen.
Yeah. The reason I'm saying Cease again, it's hard because we don't know how aggressive the Dodgers are going to be. We don't know if the White Sox will move him yet. So it's hard to just say the Cardinals will pull this off because there's other teams. It's a two-way street, all that kind of stuff. I think the Dodgers are the Corbin Burns team because I just don't see the Orioles trading for Corbin Burns. I don't really see a lot of the teams that are linked to Corbin Burns actually point it off. So I think the Dodgers kind of know it and will eventually get him, especially because they probably want to sign him long term too. Again, I think they're in on Cease too. I think they're like the Cardinals. They're going to try and figure out what the best move for them is. That's what every team's trying to do. I don't think the Orioles or the Reds are going to do what it takes to get Cease. I don't think the Braves have what it takes, and so that's why I really like the Cardinals for Dylan Cease. Seems like the Cubs are a Tyler Glasnow destination at this point, which just kills me because I want to root for Tyler Glasnow. I just want to sit there and be like, I told you guys he's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
But if he's a Cub, I don't want to do that, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, if the Cubs get Ohtani, I'm going to hope they get Glasnow, just for your sake.
Oh my gosh, that would be like, and then they find a way to get Bedell in the Rule 5 draft, and they're like,
no,
our hearts.
Cardinals trade Sonny Gray to the Cubs for a bag of balls and some peanuts.
Oh my gosh.
Trevor Rosenthal, like he got so much flack on Twitter when we were posting that stuff this week. Like he's going to get a minor league deal, guys. He's not going to make any money, and like, come on.
Yeah,
it's like basically no risk.
I would have no problem signing Rosie. I'll say it.
Me either. So a couple of bullpen arms I'll throw out. Maton makes a lot of sense. Jordan Hicks reunion makes sense if they're not spending big on a starter. Matsui, I love that fit. It seems like they're prioritizing the right-hander though, so I don't know if Matsui will end up working out because I don't know if they're going to spend $10 million plus on two guys. Except I don't know. I don't know if Matsui will get $10 million. That was maybe a little rich.
I heard Jordan Hicks' former team tried him out as a starter. I wonder how that worked for them.
Hey, maybe he should have been one. And then the other thing I'll say too is I really like the idea of Shelby Miller. Bring the band back together.
I would have with it. We did a lot of winning with those guys here, so
yeah.
So I'm telling you, one of my dreams this offseason was to just sign. Like, if they didn't sign Lynn and Gibson, would have been to do Waka as like the third starter, get Rosenthal, Miller, and Kelly for the bullpen. I would have cried. That would have just been like 15-year-old me, just like, I'm back. So, anyways, Andrew, so
where's Ohtani by the end of the week?
Dodgers.
Toronto will be fun though.
It would be.
It'll be so much fun.
I want Toronto. I want anything but the Cubs. I think it's the Dodgers.
If he goes back to Anaheim, the five teams right now, the Cubs, Dodgers, Giants, Blue Jays, and Angels. Like if he goes back, I won't be able to. Anyway.
No, him going back would be fine. Like all of us could just keep doing the same.
He's not going to win anything. I want him to win.
Yeah, I know.
Not Chicago.
It could just be the same thing as it's always been, where we're like, oh, we like Shohei because he plays for a team that doesn't matter. Send him to Oakland.
Yeah, send him to Vegas, you mean?
Oh, my bad. Well, he'd be in Oakland for a little bit. Or I guess San Francisco, they might share the ballpark.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, this was so much fun. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Thanks for participating in the chat. We love bouncing back and forth. So much fun. Remember, we're going to be live streaming again in the future. So please join us. Put everything in the chat. We love responding to those. We could have done this forever too. There are 60 interesting trade assets the Cardinals have, probably more, but we had to cut it off somewhere, unfortunately. But yeah, we've got a really exciting lineup coming up this winter. The winter meetings obviously are happening now. So be plugged into that. If anything crazy happens, you'll find it here first.
Yeah, if you guys haven't already subscribed to us, if we have any news that goes down, we'll be live probably at some point during the week to talk about it. Dylan Cease, Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto. When Ohtani doesn't go to the Cubs, we can come out here and have a party because that's the point where we're at right now. But yeah, just stay tuned. We got lots of good stuff coming.
Yeah, again, hit the subscribe button. It's really helpful for the channel, helping get this out there. Like the video as well. Again, that helps a ton. Seriously, thank you so much. And all the comments and just lingering around talking. I mean, you're sitting around listening to us talk about P. Hansen. That, we appreciate it,
Absolutely.
So it's so fun. We'll probably be back next Sunday unless something crazy happens in between now and then. But until then, it's been a New News Podcast. We're excited for the winter meetings. Keep up with everything. We'll see you guys next time.